Today's AFC is filled with so many young, good quarterbacks that figure to dominate the league for the next 10 to 15 years. The Browns are going to have to go through the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, and all these other guys just to make it to the Super Bowl. It is going to be extremely competitive. The Browns have definitely made huge improvements on their own defense, but they still have an obvious weakness at the cornerback position. The Browns need to prioritize adding a guy or even two in the draft that can help solidify that secondary and shut down those quarterbacks as much as you possibly can. So today, I want to analyze this cornerback class in the same format as my edge rusher video, which you should check out on my channel if you have not already, and talk about my two sleepers as well as my top 3 prospects. So let's analyze some film. So my first sleeper is Tay Gohan out of UCF. He opted out last season, which is why you haven't really heard his name come up throughout the draft process, but I really like him as a prospect. He's got size and length to him, and he's fairly athletic, but what I love most about him is his ability to stick like glue to the receivers opposite him. He's got incredible, out-of-this-world hip fluidity and burst, which makes it very difficult for even the sharpest of route runners to create separation. He doesn't have an elite 40 time, but his play speed shows up all the time on tape. He establishes contact on the receiver's upper to mid backs like you're supposed to, so he can slip into the receiver's back pocket. He is one of the best man-to-man corners in this entire draft class, and he's a guy that you're probably going to get in the 4th round. He's also a very smart, heady corner as well. He'll regularly recognize route combinations and pick off quarterbacks with his natural ball skills. Honestly, it's just really impressive just how reactive he is. In this clip, for example, the receivers are running a switch concept, which is an excellent call to beat a cover 1 like UCF's defense is running. There's no safety help over the top, and you're basically taking advantage of the 2 outside corners. And it's designed to confuse those 2 corners with the 4 bodies at the separating point, and almost all the time, one of the receivers is going to get wide open for a huge gain. But Gohan, he's not going to do that. He's going to easily read the play and guard the receiver on the boundary like he's supposed to in that assignment switch, while his teammate gets flat-footed and loses multiple steps on his man. These are coachable to a degree, but in game time, it's hard for you to recall those things. You've just got to act with what you see, and Tay Gohan is a master of doing that. I think Tay Gohan will be a very good corner in the NFL. I love his combination of length, hip fluidity, football IQ, and ball skills, and he's really one of my favorite guys in this entire draft regardless of position. Now for my second sleeper. He's projected as a 7th rounder to even going undrafted, which I really do not understand based on watching his tape. So, Antonio Phillips, coming out of Ball State, is a very underrated player in this corner class. He's not an exceptional athlete by any means. He's 6 foot 193. He's not going to blow you away with his athleticism, but he has a very tough, scrappy play style that you really don't see very often in the NFL. Here's the thing that I really love about Antonio Phillips. He talks a lot on the field. You hear it a lot with his coaches. And that's a very slept-on characteristic as a cornerback. You're going to get beat in the NFL, no matter who you are, but you've got to have that same mental strength, that same confidence all game, no matter who you're going up, even if you've gotten torched time and time after again. You've got to be able to keep talking, to keep fighting. It's a huge underrated trait of a cornerback, but he's got the work ethic too. He's not just arrogant and doesn't really show up. He has exceptional work ethic, exceptional determination to get better, and it's really reflected on his tape. In coverage, diving into more technical things, Phillips is very good at mirroring the receiver in early stages of routes. Once a receiver makes their initial cut, he latches on and brings that physicality throughout that entirety of the route. He can sometimes really overwhelm receivers with his sudden hand placement and strength and push them toward the sideline and really take them out of the play entirely once he gets those hands on you. Now, Phillips is still very raw. There's a reason why he's not a top 100 player. He's inconsistent in zone coverage. He doesn't have those natural instincts, and that kind of limits his upside as a starting boundary corner. However, his ball skills when playing off coverage are exceptional. He'll make you pay for those inaccurate throws, not throwing with leverage. And like I said, Phillips is more of a flyer pick on day 3, and a great player to take a chance on. His physical attitude and surprising man-to-man stickiness are great traits to work on when developing a young cornerback. So just really quickly before we get into my top 3 corners, I do want to let you guys know that I will be doing a live draft stream on Thursday, 15 minutes before the draft starts. It'll be interactive, and we'll talk about the picks and trades as they happen. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun, and I really hope that you spend draft night here on the channel, so make sure you set a reminder for 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, so you come here for the draft. And now, let's get into the top 3 corners. So J.C. Horn, gonna be my 3rd ranked corner in this draft class, and that might seem a little low, and I do like him, I do. Just not as much as the other guys in front of him. And starting with the positives, because there are a lot of positives with J.C. Horn. He has a ridiculous blend of physicality and hip fluidity. Essentially the recipe for perfect man coverage. At South Carolina, he almost exclusively lined up as a press man corner, meaning he was lined up as close as you can get to the receiver, and that really showed his physicality, and it really accentuated that strength of his. Horn has an excellent jam at the line of scrimmage, and he can get into receivers' chests, plates, and essentially eliminate them on that play, since his punches is just so powerful. But he also can mirror routes and has the body control to drape all over the receiver. Here's a play against Tennessee that I think really shows how freakish he can be from a press man alignment. The receiver is running a corner route, which many defensive backs say is the hardest route to defend one-on-one. As the receiver bursts off the line of scrimmage, Horn gets that inside hand on him to get a feel for his route and when and where he will break. He slips into that back pocket and does a great job of really establishing control of that receiver. The receiver then breaks toward the sideline to run his corner route, and if you look at Horn right now, he contorts his body and doesn't even lose a step or much momentum at all. His ceiling as a press corner is absurdly high. So now you must be wondering, why do I have 2 guys in front of him? And that is solely due to consistency. He gets called for PI all the time because of that uncontrolled, raw physicality. And his strengths is, funny enough, his weakness. And while I still think he'll be a great corner in the NFL because of his athleticism, his length, and his instincts, I am concerned about the penalties. So many corners come out of college as very physical but raw, and they get called for PI all the time in the NFL, and then they have to kind of shy away from that physicality, and then they aren't using that defining trait that they always had, and they don't do so well. So if Horn can develop more nuanced technique, which I think can definitely happen, I think he'll be an elite corner for years to come. I just think there are safer and guys with probably better upside than Horn does, and more well-rounded than Horn is. Now, my 2nd ranked corner has a different style than some of these other guys that we've talked about have, and that's Greg Newsome II out of Northwestern. Newsome was exclusively an off-man corner in his time in college, and he thrived in that role. His primary job was to play as a cover 3 corner and just use his phenomenal instincts to jump underneath routes. He is very reactive and very explosive, which makes him a nightmare to throw towards since he can undercut a route at any time. His combination of lateral movement skills and his anticipatory play style are deadly and offer a lot of flexibility in terms of playing off coverage since he can move downhill so fast to take out screens, ins, outs, slants, you name it. But something I found very interesting when watching Newsome was that teams tried to take advantage of his lightning fast break on underneath routes by throwing double moves at him. They were hoping that he'd bite since he is so instinctual, and then that would create a liability and just open space for the receiver for a walk-in touchdown. It did not work. His makeup speed and the juice in his hips allow him to recover when he does misstep occasionally, which just makes it very hard for you to actually beat him in coverage. I was very, very close to making him my number one corner over Patrick Surtain. Little spoiler there. He is that good. My only real knock on Newsome is his lack of size, which will limit his ceiling as a press corner, but if you utilize him as an off-man corner in that cover 3, cover 1 scheme, playing cover 4, really you name it, he will be a handful for offenses from day one. Not that it was much of a surprise, but my number one corner in this year's draft is Patrick Surtain from Alabama. He has the highest floor of all these corners. He's experienced against top competition, he's played for a defensive mastermind in Nick Saban, and he's the most technically sound prospect to come out in quite some time. And now I don't think Surtain has a defining trait that makes him stand out. It's more the amount of things he can do at a consistently high level that makes him a top-tier prospect. His strength is definitely playing as a cover 3 boundary corner. He excelled in Saban's defense, specifically in that role. He has a great shuffle technique from an off-man alignment, which allows him to read the quarterback's eyes, while also having the receiver in his line of vision so he can burst on anything underneath. At the catch point, his length and reaction time enables him to disrupt routes like comebacks, even when playing cover 3, which typically is not a favorable coverage against those routes. But again, he has those instincts, he has the length, he can do it. He can also get into your face, he can press you, and shut down all outside releases because he also has the hip fluidity and as well as the hand placement to really stop you from going anywhere off the line of scrimmage. Surtain's lack of speed has always been a knock on him, but because he's so technically sound and he's also sneakily quick, he just doesn't get burnt that often. Surtain is about as sure of a prospect as you can get, but he does have limited upside, which is kind of why he doesn't get talked about that much. I still think that he's the number one cornerback in this class, just because he's just so refined and smart, and that he'll be a consistently good cornerback every year, even if I don't think he'll ever be in that Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander, Stephon Gilmore type of class. So those are my rankings for the cornerbacks in this year's draft. Really looking forward to the draft, seeing who the Browns decide to pick up. Are there any opinions that you guys have on different cornerback prospects? Do you think that I might have misevaluated one? I'd be interested to see where a lot of people are leaning with this cornerback class, which is really intriguing and has a lot of options. Please let me know your thoughts. I'd love to interact about that. Make sure to tune in to the draft stream Thursday, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to be there, and we'll see you then.